Okay, the hope is you've been following along with the projects that we've been doing in Math 119. So there's been a series of projects that we've completed in Math 119, and part of doing those projects is just getting your feet wet with respect to the material that's covered in Math 119. Are the projects covering everything that you've done in Math 119? No, but they cover a lot of stuff, all right? They really do. But here's the deal. You're just trying to get your feet wet in doing the projects as they relate to the courses that you're being taught, the topics that are being taught in the courses that you're taking at Essex County College. I'm going to do the Math 120 now. We've already completed the 119, so I'll go to 120. Again, they get some, measurable performance objectives. I wouldn't worry so much about that. Your objective is to learn the material, by the way. So I'm in the first project, Project A, and I realize some students may not have done the 119, and I think that's unfortunate. You really should work through the 119 material before you take the 120 material. All right, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch Sage from my computer. And I want to claim to you that, certainly if you're new here, let me go to the Finder, Applications. I'm looking for something that looks like Sage. I'm looking through my Applications folder. It's in alphabetical order, by the way. And I'm looking for something that looks like Sage, and I see it right over here. So I'm going to double click on it. And when I double click on it, I get options. And the options I'm getting are two options. My favorite option, which is the terminal application or command line. My other option is a Jupyter notebook. I'm going to briefly describe Jupyter notebooks. And the reason for that, Jupyter notebooks are the most common format used if you're going to be sharing information with other people. All right, so I'm going to launch it. And when I launch it, I want to point out what happens over here. It's going to launch my web browser, but here's the deal. The files are still on my computer. All right, these are still on my computer, by the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a new document. And what I want to claim while we're doing a new document, I want to do a Sage 9.4 document. And I've got input over here, and I'm going to type in something really simple, but I'm going to type in 1, let's see, +2. Now, if you hit the return button, nothing is going to happen. Let me back up, hit the delete key. What you need to do is shift return. And when you do that, you get the output. Now, what I want to do is I want to save the document, right? So I'm going to save it as, I don't know, I'm going to call it something. I'm going to call it my first .sage document. I know I'm in all uppercase. Let me get rid of that. I don't like uppercase. So first, Sage document. And then I'm going to hit rename it. Okay, rename. Now if I start typing another thing, let's say I type in sine of pi. And again, I know this is new to you. If I hit the return button, it's weird. I mean, nothing really happened except the parentheses was shifted around. So I got to back up. Remember this, shift return. And what do I get? 0, as expected. All right, let's do cosine of pi. And again, I'm getting a little better. I'm going to do shift return. All right, -1 as expected. I'm going to hit this button over here. This is the save button. All right. So I'm going to say I've got a document now on my computer called First Sage Document. So what I want to do is I want to go to my my Finder, and I'm gonna search for it. All right. I wonder where it is. So I'm gonna search for this. First .sage oh, look at it, it's right there. So I see it. All right. It's right over here. I want to point out where it is. It's in my Jupyter folder in my home directory. Notice down here it says Ron Bannon, Documents, Jupyter, First Sage document. Now you could share this document. You could drag it to your email program. And you could share that with somebody if you wanted to. Not that you want to share that document. It's kind of stupid, but you could share that with somebody. All right. Now, for example, let's say you're studying at another institution where they want your work submitted as a Sage document, or professionally, they want your Sage document, you would submit this document to it. And what does it have an extension on it? And make sure you're aware of that extension. It automatically put it there for me. Right? I'm not going to share it with anybody, by the way. I'm going to close it out. I'm not going to save it. I don't want to save that. I'm going to go back to this thing over here. Now I can continue to work on that document as much as I want to, all right? But I'm going to say I don't really like using this system. I don't like using Jupyter Notebooks because I'm basically not really sharing my work with anyone. And when I do, I use something completely different. I use what's called Sage Tech, which allows me to use Sage and LaTeX, which is the typesetting program, in one shot. All right, I don't have to worry about going to a Jupyter notebook. I just share my code this way. All right, and a lot of people have been doing that nowadays. They've been typesetting it in LaTeX, but they're embedding the Sage code. So what I want to do is I want to close this out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch Sage again. All right, I want to do this project over here. So I'm going to go hit my button over here to Sage. Remember, I just launched Sage. Remember that? By going to the Finder and looking for the application. But since I just launched it, it's in my dock now because I just launched it. I'll click it. And I hope you notice that when this thing launched, it changed its icon from the Sage icon to a little feather. I believe that feather is Apache, right? It's running an Apache server. Okay, here's the deal though. When you launch a Jupyter Notebook, it's launching a web browser. That's the interface it's using. The file is on your computer, and you're actually using your computer to do the computation. Now, I actually prefer a command line. I type this over here. It's going to put a terminal now. I'm going to launch it. I prefer this. What happens now, it launched my terminal application, which is transparent. I can see through it, and Sage is running. So I can do the same thing, like 1 + 2. Now, I don't have to hit shift return now. Just return will do it for me. I can type in the sign of pi. And what should I get? I should get 0 again, right? Just hit the return button, not shift return. Jupyter Notebooks, shift return. Terminal, just return. Whoops, cosine, right? Cosine of pi now. -1 is expected. I'm going to clear my screen. And what I want to do is I want to just go to this Sage project over here. And this is Sage project content. It says using Sage, you're going to graph this relationship out. All right. And certainly if you haven't done the Math 119 material, this might seem odd to you, but we need to do something first. And what I need to do is reset. And what does reset do? It kind of clears out any stored variables that I might have that might interfere with my computation. The next thing I need to do is I need to define two variables, x and y, and they are variables, all right? So let's define x and y. There's x is one variable, and y is the other one. And I'm just typing what I'm seeing over here. I don't see any errors so far. And now I'm going to type this in over here, and I'm going to type in P1. P1 is being assigned now an equation, and that equation is x minus, I want to point out what the equation is. It's this equation over here. And it looks kind of strange to me, but I'll type in what I'm seeing. What am I seeing? Parentheses, cosine, and then what I see, oh, the cosine's taking an argument, x squared minus y squared, and then they square that whole thing over there. And it looks strange, but this is, computer algebra system. A double equal sign means you have an equation, and that equation is x times y. So this x minus cosine squared, x squared minus y squared, is the argument, is equal to xy minus the sine being squared. And I want to point out what I'm doing over here. I'm inside the parentheses, and I'm squaring the argument inside there. And that's often confusing to students. And what am I squaring? I'm squaring the sine. Whoops. I'm squaring the sine function. And what's inside the sine function? Well, the argument is x squared minus y squared. Now remember, if I make a mistake, it's not going to blow up. I just hit the return button, all right? Now someone says, can you do shift return? You can, but I'm going to point out when you're doing terminal, it's just simply return. I got it. Now if you want to display what P1 looks like, just type P1 and you'll see it, all right? Now granted, someone says, looks strange to me. They kind of reordered it. Not really. I mean, they just typed that up for you in a little slightly different format, but it's still the same thing. P1 is P1. Now let me do IP1. Now you may wonder what IP1 stands for. It's my naming convention for the image of P1. And what the image means is graph. And the kind of graph I want to do is implicit plot. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do something really dangerous over here. I'm going to copy this line. So I copied it. I'm going to go back over here. And you notice if you guys are computer science majors, copy paste doesn't always work so nicely. All right, I got that. And now what I want to do, I want to show IP1.showIt. And let's see what it looks like. It's launching a viewer now, and I see the picture. All right. So this is kind of like a gentle introduction into using Sage to graph a very complicated function. I shouldn't say function, a relationship between X and Y involving trigonometric variables. Now, I want to claim also over here that there's other software to use, and you're free to use whatever software you want. Don't think this is the only software you're going to be using. Now, those students that are submitting documents for grading with your instructor, make sure you're using the correct format. Now, my format in general is this format over here. Let me just briefly describe it for you. Right, the format is you use a Jupyter notebook, the course CRN, you look it up in your schedule, your student number, not that you know your student number, but you can look up your student number on web services. The course number, for example, this course number is 120. And then the project letter. Well, the project letter of this thing is Project A. Now remember, you can type this in if you want, the IPYNB, which is the extension for a Jupyter notebook. Or you can let Sage do it for you. It will do it for you. They give an example of some student here that does their work over here. And here's the deal. You're going to mail it to an address. Now, this is just a generic address where assignments could be sent to. I'm not monitoring that address, but you're more than welcome to send that to practice it. I'm not going to grade it, though, by the way. If your teachers are using these things, your teachers may grade it. But here's the deal. Most of your study should not be concerned about grading. It really shouldn't be. It should be working at things, getting things done. This is Project A. We just finished it off. All right. So when we come back, we'll do Project B here. They get the picture of here. Let me repeat this. One of the big reasons I don't use Jupyter notebooks is I typically typeset my work, and when I'm sharing it, I actually share my Sage code within my LaTeX document. For example, this PDF built into it is the Sage code. All right, I'm not copy pasting from somewhere. Sage is running while I typeset this document, and it's generated by a program called Sage Tech. All right, a very nice product that everyone looking forward to a career in a STEM-related area should be thinking about using both LaTeX and Sage to help them out with presenting information. Thank you so much for paying attention.